All right, we have 16
16 people?
in the waiting room right now.
Oh, that's not so good.
Where is the participants?
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're still waiting for some participants to come in. So if you could just keep your microphone muted and sit tight, we're going to give another couple minutes for some participants to join. Welcome, welcome. We're just waiting for some more people to join. Please keep your microphones muted and sit tight. Welcome, guys. We'll wait maybe 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we will begin with the session. Just hi, welcome everyone that's still joining. We're still waiting for a couple more people to join, and then we'll get started with the webinar. we'll give 2 more minutes and then we'll start. So a couple more minutes and then we can start the webinar, guys. Just sit tight for a little bit more. All right, guys, we are going to start. For people coming in, that's okay. You guys are here already. Thank you so much for coming. If you guys are excited, you can put some, excited emojis and Zoom reactions or whatever. But we are going to start this webinar. And first, I just want to welcome you all. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate we have some amazing people speaking today. And we are very excited to see so many people turn up and be excited about such a pressing matter. So first, let's start with basic stuff. We're gonna ask you to rename your account. So for example, mine is Tiago Greenschool or Tiago Moderator for now. Your name and then organization. Please keep yourself muted. We will ask participants to stay muted and make sure you have completed the attendance form if you guys are joining. So make sure you've ticked off those 3 boxes and we'd be good to go for there. And some of the rules is that we will be allowing for questions. You guys can raise your hands using, Zoom chat features or ask questions in the chat. We'll also be using something called Slido, which I'll explain further in a bit. But please be concise with your comments and your questions as we are restricted on time, which is unfortunate, but please do be very concise with what you want to say so it's conducted to the conversation. And we really ask you guys to complete the feedback form at the end of the session, to give us feedback and to understand where we can improve, and that kind of stuff. So we will be using Slido, which is a web app that we will be using for questions. You can scan this QR code and send over a question. It's kind of like a polling system. And it's just an easy to use interactive poll. So we'll be using this throughout. Our speakers are using this. We'll be having some allotted time at the end of the session. We'll be using Slido as well. So you guys can familiarize yourself with this in a second. You guys can scan the link right now, but we won't be having any questions as of now. So the agenda for today is that I'm just going to do the introduction for a little bit longer, and we'll be getting right into our first speaker, who is Roger from Zembird. And then he'll be speaking for 30 minutes, and then we'll go from speaker to speaker for the next hour and a half or so. After that, we'll have some breaks in between. Those are a little bit flexible, but first, some time for you guys to digest and breathe on what you just witnessed, because they all have a lot to say. After that, we'll be doing some feedbacks and some time for questions for, just speakers in general. Because I know there are going to be a lot of questions and you guys are probably very curious on, what wonderful things they have to say. And at the very end of the session, I will be explaining the giveaway challenge that we will be doing and just kind of give a closing ceremony. So that's the agenda for today. Now, our partners we have today are Sherco, which is Sustainability and Resilience, and they've been working alongside Green School and Zenberg to create this webinar for you guys, and for us, and just and we also have Green School, which is a green school located in Bali, Indonesia, and it's a alternative school, that's trying to create global community of learners and making our world sustainable. And then Zenberg Media, which is a publishing platform. They're doing lots of cool stuff over there as well. So these are our partners for today. So huge thanks for them for organizing this and, just making this all possible for us. And I'll now be introducing the speakers. First, we have Roger Ong. You guys can read their summaries over here, but I can give a brief description as well. Roger has been doing lots of good stuff for Zenberg Media, publishing a lot of articles and traveling across Japan. And he's just been really doing some really great stuff. He's a Zenberg representative. Then we have Cynthia, who has been interning as an environmental engineer for Sherco. She's a creative coordinator at Motion for Nature. And she has also been doing a lot recently. She's going to give some info on the Biogas Digester. You guys will find more about that later. And then lastly, we have our senior Green School student, which is a fellow classmate of mine, Eamon Ayers. And he is just an activist, a musician. He's lots of things, but I'll let him introduce himself a bit better when he speaks. So those are our three speakers. Huge thanks to them as well for, coming up here and having so much to share, so much wisdom from them. Yeah, we'll be getting into the first speaker now, which will be Roger. And if everyone could just give a huge welcome to Roger. He will be presenting now. I'll stop my screen share. So everybody, yes, please welcome Roger.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Hi. Okay. Thank you, Tiago. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to share about sustainability in Japan. Now, my name is Roger, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Zenberg Media. Now, Zenberg Media is an online magazine that's based in Japan. And what we do is we share news and do interviews about sustainability in Japan and share it with the world. So basically anything that's related to SDGs, sustainability and whatnot in Japan, yes, Zenberg wants to be there. Now, a little bit on myself. If you ask me where I'm from, I'll usually tell you I'm a global citizen. Now, at this moment in time, I believe that the problems we have today really needs us to be bigger than any nationality. We need to be human beings. So, and I work in the media, so being a global citizen gives me the perspective I need. And as Tiago has shared, I'm currently traveling around Japan on a bicycle. Now, the reason why I'm traveling around Japan is because international news, the world news, usually don't cover news from the quiet areas in Japan. But my experience, having been to a number of places, is that there is actually a lot of good lessons we can learn about sustainability from these areas. And my expertise is in content marketing. And what that means is I'm in charge of creating content to help people achieve their goals, to learn more, whether it be blogs, websites, or through YouTube. Now, on the fifth photo, you can see it's actually taken at the Japanese temple. It's one of the perks of the job where I get to go to these hidden areas to find hidden wisdom, especially for nuggets about sustainability. And of course, Japan is not all sugar and spice. I also cover the dark side of Japan. Important issues like gender equality and poverty are still quite prevalent in Japan. Now, that last photo you'll see is from Minamata, where there's discrimination continuing to this day because of industrial irresponsibility from mercury poisoning disease. If that sounds familiar, it's actually also Johnny Depp's new movie, Minamata. Okay, so I believe that we are all here for one reason, climate change. Now we have received a message from IPCC about 2 months ago. It's code red for humanity. While IPCC is a group of international scientists from all around the world, reporting that climate change is caused by humans, one, and we are in trouble because we will hit the 1.5 degrees by 2040. Now, consequences will be disastrous, but we actually don't need to wait until like 2040 to feel the effects. We are feeling it now. Japan is facing a lot of flooding and rainfall through when the typhoon comes. Greece, wildfire. There's a lot of climate refugees on the escape right now. Oceanic ecological collapse, animal extinction. Now, these are just a few climate disasters in the world. And in fact, you don't need this slide. You just turn on the TV these days and you probably see something about climate change. Now, my goal here is not to cause you any anxiety. On the contrary, my talk will end with how we can tackle climate change, because we have done this before. Now, 2 decades ago, some of you might know that there was an ozone layer hole. So all the countries came together. We made a law to ban CFC, which was causing the hole in the ozone layer. And the ozone layer closed up the hole. Now, it is possible to do this. And we know it is possible. Why? Because remember what Greta said. We already have the solutions. We have the innovation. We have the technology. We just need to invest and scale the solutions. And Japan has the solutions too. Now, because time is a bit short today, rather than rather than me throwing you all kinds of examples of projects in Japan, I will share just one idea. Japan's solution to climate change are based on this one idea or are part of it. And that idea is called circular economy. Some of you may have heard this before. In simple words, it just means a different way to make and use things. And Japan wants to use this model to change how we make and use things. Now, what does this have to do with climate change, you ask? If we look at the global carbon emissions, if today we stop using fossil fuels and we change everything to renewable energy, we will only have decreased only 55% of total emissions in the world. Why? What's the remainder? Well, the remainder is related to the things we use. Smartphones, foods, clothing, your bags, television, cars, trains, all of this, in the process of making them, releases greenhouse gases too. The easy way to think of this is the car. We want to make sure the car uses clean fuel. But what about the materials to manufacture the car? You got aluminum, copper, glass, rubber, special fiber. They must come from somewhere. And furthermore, the way we make things today has a lot of problems too. If you look at most societies, we make things in 3 different stages. We take, we make, and we waste. We keep taking raw materials from nature, including fossil fuels, which, by the way, are finite resources. We make. The way we manufacture things, we make things are often very bad for the environment. The worst is pollution. Waste, we throw things without thinking about recycling or reusing. And now we have toxic landfills and ocean plastics. Now, these 3 steps are what we call the linear economy. Well, linear because it's a line. I call it the death machine because it's harming both nature and human. Now, we know this is bad. So what's the solution? Well, we want to take less or nothing from nature. We also do not want to create any waste. What does that mean? So whatever we make, whatever we use, we want to keep it in the red circle. We want to keep recycling, reusing, returning. Keep it in the red circle. And that red circle is what we call the circular economy. So no taking, no waste. Those of you familiar with zero waste, you will be familiar with this quote. Waste is an error in how we design our systems. So if today you threw something in the garbage can today, there's something wrong with how the product is designed, or there's something wrong with our systems. Now, of course, this is a simplified diagram. It doesn't address the challenges, some of the problems of changing. This is the actual diagram. It shows how to return sources to different parts of the production process. Now, you don't have to remember this chart. Just remember that we want to keep everything in the circle. And by the way, this diagram is created by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. You see the name at the bottom right. This is a leading organization in Europe, helping to promote circular economy in the world. So we know how to tackle the climate crisis. Half the solution is we switch everything to renewables. The other half, we make sure we change how we make and use things. Now you might be wondering, what does this have to do with you? What does this have to do with you as an individual, as one person? Well, because when we are talking about making changes, we're changing systems. So usually we talk about on a business level, on a governmental level. Well, as it turns out, it shows us how much power we have here. Now, if I'm sure all of us use social network, and at some point we have seen a post something like this, a list of action to tackle climate change. Avoid plastics, eat less meat, drive less, buy fewer stuff, plant a tree. Now, why is this important? Well, for example, let's take avoid plastics. What if we told Coca-Cola tomorrow, sorry, we are going to ban plastic bottles? What if we told Starbucks tomorrow, sorry, no more plastic cups? Or even tell McDonald's, sorry, no more meat? They are scared of such disruption. They are scared of this big change. You see, when we spend our money, is where we cast a vote. And more people are asking for climate friendly products. We are creating that disruption. Businesses know that they have to change. If not, they will not survive in the future. In fact, when we survey the Japanese youths, the top reason why they buy products is for the purpose of the brand. How is the brand going to benefit society and environment? How is it good for people and how is it good for nature? So, creating a circular economy is important to address the climate change, but it is also helping to achieve the SDGs too. We can stop taking from nature. We will be protecting more wildlife. We also make sure we don't overproduce too much clothes, too much food. In fact, when we talk about food, we can actually change the systems. So we can divert all the food waste to people who are hungry and eliminate hunger. Now, when we talk about circular economy, now the term circular economy was created a few decades ago. But actually, a few years ago, we discovered that Japan traditionally had a circular economy model also. And surprisingly, it was more than 1,000 years ago that this model existed. Well, we did some research and found some clues that it actually existed. For example, we have a Gion festival. Now, this is one of the 3 big festivals in Japan held every single year. Oh, okay. Well, for the past 2 years, it's been coronavirus, so they were very sad they weren't able to hold it. But this festival is actually 1,140 years old. And this festival is not run by government or any big authority saying, hey, you guys must organize this. No, it is community driven, which means the residents staying there wants to do this every year. And they have been doing it for 1,000 years. Now, that's our first clue. In our second clue, we found it in Satoyama. Satoyama is a Japanese word for rural village that lives in coexistence with nature sustainably. So there's local grown food. They use wood for around the houses, not imported from somewhere else. Of course, it's also modern. I mean, they have electricity. They have cars too, but only in required places. For example, housing, they don't have air conditioner. They don't need heating or cooling because in the summer it's cool. In the winter, it's actually warm. And they have sustainable agriculture that has zero negative impact on nature. Very good for the nature. We also have a third clue here. Now, this is the list of the oldest companies in the world. You will see that 9 out of 15 are from Japan. 8 of them are more than 1,000 years old. So it looks like, Japan knows something about sustainability. It has sustainable community, sustainable village, and now sustainable business. What about something bigger? Sustainable cities. And yes, Japan has it. And it was called the Edo City. Now today it's called Kyoto, which is somewhere in the middle of Japan. This city perfected sustainability in Edo period, which was about 400 years ago. We call this system, the city uses, we call it circular economy instead of economy. Well, the name is trademarked by a Japanese organization called Kyoto. And as you can guess, the word economy borrows from the phrase Edo period. Now, why is it important for us to study this? Why do we need to study Japan's circular economy? Well, during Edo period, Japan was actually a closed country. What that means is there's no foreign influences. Nobody was coming into Japan. There's minimal external influence, almost no import. So Japan needed to produce everything by itself. Produce the food for itself, metals, textiles, and so on and so forth. It needed to be self-sufficient. And during that time, Japan was the biggest city in the world with 1 million people. So we're talking about self-sufficiency for 1 million people. And we're not just talking about survival, living on pieces of bread. Japan's culture actually flourished. Tea ceremony, burial dance, calligraphy, the well-being of the people were well taken care of. So it's very important for us to learn from this period, learn from their system. And let's look at some of the features of what made Edo City sustainable. Now, most of us are familiar with the 3 R's: reuse, reduce, recycle. But during the Edo period, in circular economy, they had 2 more things: repair and return. Repair and return. Let's take a look at what repair has. So we look at the first photo, the gentleman with the umbrella there. These were craftsmen, umbrella craftsmen. So they take any broken umbrella, they replace the broken bamboo, they replace the paper with oil paper, and they resell it after repairs. And if they sold it today, it'll be about $50 US dollars, $50. So it's pretty profitable. Then we have the pots and pans. If you have holes in your pots and pans, no worries, because during the Edo period, they had craftsmen, metalsmiths, who are able to repair these pots and pans. And now this is one of my favorite, the wax, candle wax. Now, candle wax is an expensive commodity during the Edo period, so any household able to buy and use are actually considered rich. Now you have people going around these houses, they buy the used wax, they bring the wax back to the workshop and make new candles to sell. Now there are many examples, but the point is, what we treat as broken garbage today is actually a source of profit for people who are willing to do the repairs. An industry sprung up as a way to deal with waste. So that's repair. Now let's take a look at return. Now return, the easiest way to understand this is through food. Now the main industry for Japan was, of course, agriculture. So they grew food for humans, livestock, and fishes. Now what about the organic fecal matter from humans and animals? Again, there are people who went around to collect the waste and then resell them to farmers. Why? Because it's profitable, because very high quality fertilizers. Now this is one of the best examples of returning resources back to nature. Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh dear. Sorry, technical issue. Should be here. Okay, so we've looked at repair and return. There are other features about the circular economy, and one of the features is one of the ideas, concepts is actually zero waste. Now, mottainai is also a word that Japanese have, And what that means is something like a dislike in creating waste. There is an unhappiness if waste is created. Now, the perfect example is in fashion, the kimono. Now, kimonos are created from long rectangular pieces of cloth. If you can see from the red arrow at the bottom right, just one piece of long rectangular cloth. A few snips, a few sews, it becomes an elegant piece of fashion. It's unlike modern clothing. There's a lot of cutting and discarding, creating wasted textiles. And decentralization was another feature of sustainability. Now, what decentralization means, you don't put everything in one place. So decentralization builds resilience, which means societies can go back to normal anytime it faces any disruption or disaster, earthquakes, typhoons, or right now we know pandemics. Now, Japan is a hot area for natural disasters. So the Japanese do not pool all resources in one area. So instead, every region was able to leverage its own strength and create new unique producers. You can see from the map, it's a bit hard to see, but all these gray circles, each of these gray circles had its own unique stuff. For example, iron, indigo dye for textiles, kelp for food, wood, salt, and many more. And this is a good example for local production and local consumption. So when we look at this, a big question for us is, how is it that Japan was able to create this model by itself 1,000 years ago? Well, it turns out it's the way they think. You see, cultural values was a big influence, especially for the Japanese. For example, coexistence is important for the Japanese people. Whatever decisions made, they made within the limits of nature. What I mean is, we can look at Western and Eastern philosophy here. Western philosophy will be logical thinking. So what they thought was humans are separate from nature. This is my land. This is our resources. It's up to us to decide what to use with it. But for the Eastern philosophy, they think as a group. No, we are a part of nature. We don't harm nature, or else it will harm us back. If we want to benefit, we want to receive the gifts from nature, we must take care of it. Another philosophy was waste was not waste. Waste was a resource, as we have seen. Japanese have created words like mottainai and wabi-sabi to show a deep link that whatever we use, whatever we produce, is actually somehow attached to nature. And furthermore, it is profitable. It is possible to make money out of waste. So in conclusion, what have we learned? Well, we learned three things. We can tackle climate change with circular economy. Remember, we want to change the way we make and use things, and that is half the solution to tackling climate change. And Edo City has shown us that, yes, this circular economy works. It's good for nature, good for society, good for business. Second, yes, I'm not trying to say the lesson is we should go back to always, give out our Wi-Fi, give out our smartphone. No, that's not what I want to try to say. You might be also wondering, why did Japan stop being sustainable? Well, Japan stopped being sustainable because of westernization. We stopped being circular because we chose convenience. We gave up sustainability for efficiency. So what I'm trying to say is, now we want to tap on all this old wisdom, this traditional wisdom that we have, and then we use modern technology to boost sustainability. And finally, this is a good question that I hope you ask yourself. What wisdom does your country have? Because it doesn't really matter if the circular economy is Japan model or not. What matters is whether you can use it for your community, for your country. For example, for our Indonesian friends, what knowledge does your indigenous people have? I heard there's also the concept of Trihita Karana. My pronunciation is right. Is it something that Indonesia can use? And if there's any New Zealand friends, there's also the Te Reo Maori, which is also a circular model, a unique circular model. So is it something that New Zealand can use? So that's really a short coverage of what circular economy in Japan is. And I hope it gives you an idea of what Japan is striving for. Now, there are many businesses that are redesigning their businesses to be circular, to tackle sustainability and climate change and tackle the climate crisis. If you're interested in learning more, yeah, please feel free to reach out to me, to Zambert. Now, I think we still have a bit of time. So I will share two examples of how this circular economy ideas are being used. Now, one of this is Kamikatsu in Tokushima. Tokushima is also in the central area of Japan. Now, this is Japan's first zero waste town. Zero waste town is the population size is about 1,200. Now, this town itself has achieved a recycling rate of 80%, a very, very high recycling rate. And the rest is hard to recycle. The final 20%, they find it hard to recycle because things like used diapers, menstruation products, complex materials like glass. So they're trying to find solutions to that. But because they are not a rich town, they really need to innovate. Yeah. And what the town does is they divide their rubbish, they wash their rubbish, if you can believe. They wash the garbage, they wash their waste, and divide them into 47 categories. For example, like milk cartons, yeah, definitely wash. Bottles of liquid, food packs, they will make sure it's clean and pass it to this recycling center, which looks like a question mark. Now, why were they successful? Well, the government say, hey, we want to do this. So they put in policy, hey, to encourage everyone to join. And the people, the community, really wants to do it themselves too. So we see there's this good collaboration and very positive atmosphere going on in Kamikatsu. And what's very interesting is you can see on the second photo on the lower right, you see this board, right? So the green color box, the green box is what is being recycled. So as I said there are 47 categories. Yeah, each yellow basket is one type of material. And what's interesting is they will tell you how much it costs to recycle or how much they will earn by recycling, how much the town will earn by recycling. They also tell you when you recycle this, what is their second life? What will these items be recycled into? So there's this transparency. The government is very clear. Hey, and this is how much it costs. This is how much we will earn, and you are giving a second life to what you are using. Again, there's this idea of very, very positive atmosphere. I'll share one more. Okay, yeah, this is a great example. My Mizu. This is something like superhero story because there's a hero and a villain. The hero is of course My Mizu. Now the founder of My Mizu actually went to government authority, and she told them, hey, we should implement water fountain so that people can get water to refill for free. So they can bring their tumblers, they can bring their own plastic bottles and refill water for free. And the government authorities told her, no, nobody will want it. So what did she do? She went out, she talked to people, she built an app, and she managed to gather about 200,000 people using the app and showed everyone that, yes, we want the change. Again, remember, we have the power. Individuals have the power to do this. So yeah, it's a very successful water refilling app, and they save billions of plastic bottles in Japan every year. And they never spend a single dime on advertising because the users themselves are so passionate about this. They actually share it with their favorite restaurants, with their favorite places. So yes, Maimizu is a great example for creating zero waste. Okay, I'll stop here. I think time is a bit short. And thank you for your time. And back to you, Tiago.
Thank you so much, Roger. That was wonderful. I feel like I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone did too. You know, you guys, if you want to put some reactions, you know, heart reactions for, you know, really appreciate Roger because that was wonderful. He really shared a lot of insight on, like, you know, circular economy, you know, and using modern efficiency and that kind of stuff. That was really great. Thank you so much, Roger. We will be having some time for questions now. And I'm going to share the Slido QR code. So here it is. You guys, if you can scan this, or you can go to slide.do and then put in this number. You guys can ask some questions there. It looks something a little bit like this. And here, I'm just asking you a question, you know, what is something you learned from Roger's presentation? So you guys can type it in here, or you can raise your hand using the Zoom function. We don't have much time, so we won't be allowing one question. So apologies to everyone who has, you know, lots of questions. However, we will have some allotted time after speakers have spoken to have some general questions for any of the speakers, you know, in case we miss some, and I'm sure there are many great ones. Okay, Samantha, you are on Zoom. You can type it in the chat, or if you want me to unmute you, I can unmute you. What's your question? Samantha, do you still want to ask a question?
Oh, how do you use Slido? That's the question.
So for people that didn't understand, you can scan this QR code. I'm going to leave it up here a bit longer, or go to this, what's it called? This, oops, sorry. Do this code over here on slide.do and ask your question. If that is too complicated for you guys, you can just put it in the chat. But if not, we would like for you to use Slido because that is currently what the team is using.
Gratitude and love.
Samantha, I don't know what you mean by allow all. If that's referring to your cookies, your website's browser cookies, then I would assume yes. I just posted the link again in the chat, guys. You can go there. I think that'll take you straight to the poll. we'll give a little bit more time, you guys to get some questions in, and then we'll ask it really quickly, get Roger to answer, and then we'll move on because we don't have much time. So we have a question here asking, since plastic packaging is used extensively in Japan, I was wondering what kind of recycling systems used to deal with plastics. So Roger, if you could answer that question. I can stop sharing if you want, or I can keep on sharing. You can just unmute yourself.
Hi. It's a very good question, and it's actually quite a complex question, because it involves a lot of things, including consumer behavior. It's involving the we have recycling centers that are acted as business. So one of the most effective ways, and in the international community wants to anti up this, is what we call extended producer responsibility, which means if I produce this thing, I am responsible to make sure this gets recycled. Now in Japan, when this EPR, we call it EPR for short, when this EPR was introduced on the international stage, not all countries did it, but Japan was one of the countries that actually put it into effect. So in Japan, we have a lot of collection, whether it be public or private companies collecting them. So what we should be doing is we make sure, again, awareness, because when these companies collect these plastics, there are a lot of different types of plastics. There are 7 types of plastic. So we need people to understand what are the differences, what needs to be washed, what needs to be cleaned, so that when it reaches the recycling center, it can be recycled properly. And definitely we need to act on consumer behavior, because Japan is famous for over packaging. Just the other day, I went to buy onigiri. The onigiri is a rice ball. It's wrapped in a plastic bag, and then it had a plastic container. And when you buy it, they give you a plastic bag. There's 3 packages for 1 rice ball. That's ridiculous. And someone asked, yes, is it fun traveling around Japan? Yes, it's fun, but it's also enlightening, because you realize that different region enforces things differently. And for example, where I'm right now is in Kagawa, they use plastic quite freely, and that's not a good thing. So the other problem, I would say, the last point I'll bring is Japan's top government needs to set policy and say they need to be more forceful and make sure all prefectures are willing to cut down on plastics. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Roger, and thank you to whoever asked that question. I hope that answered your question. Roger, just thank you again for your presentation and just answering the questions. That was wonderful. We will be now moving on to the next speaker, who is Cynthia, the Sherco representative. So if everyone could please welcome Cynthia, I am going to mute my microphone. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're doing great today. Can you give me a heart reaction if you're doing amazing? Thank you. All right. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to Shiriko. I'd like to introduce you to Shiriko. Shiriko is an environmental think, do, be, thank based in Bali, Indonesia. Our think tank is working on various European Commission projects such as Tipping Plus, Landmark, and GIZ. Our do tank works on installing biogas and producing climate-smart products such as Sure Coffee, Sure Cocoa, and Sure Cookies. Meanwhile, our B tank provides online and offline training events. So let's continue with our session. Let's go back to Slido. I'd like to start with a simple quiz. Okay, is everyone back on Slido? The code for my quiz would be 062627. The instructions should also be in the chat box for you to refer to.
627.
The code is 062627. Okay. Right, anyone having any problems? Can you give me a thumbs up if you have successfully accessed Slido? Okay, so my question is, what comes to mind when I say the word clean energy? Okay, I'll give you all a bit more time to answer the question. Mm-hmm. So the number for the quiz is 062267. Is everyone on Slido? Can you give me a thumbs up if you are? Okay, I think some people are already in Slido. So I'd like to know what comes to mind when I say the word clean energy. Okay, thank you everyone. Let's get started. Let's go back to my presentation. So has anyone ever been to Indonesia? Right, so this is in the map of Indonesia. Indonesia is a developing country with 270 million inhabitants. In 2018, Indonesia produces 889 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. We need to reduce emissions to below 51 metric tons by 2050. To reach our nationally determined contribution targets, the government has made the commitment to reduce total greenhouse gas emissions by 23% by 2025. The country's energy efficiency performance is also relatively poor. As of 2019, 88% of energy generated in Indonesia came from fossil fuels. The nation should stop using coal by 2037 and increase renewable energy targets to at least 50% by 2030. We should address climate change issues because Indonesia is vulnerable to climate change, and adaptation and mitigation actions are needed. So this is the current condition in Indonesia. 50 million people do not have access to electricity. This is about half the population of Japan. Furthermore, 12.7 million households still depend on biomass fuels for cooking. There are many side effects and consequences from using biomass for cooking. Using firewood produces indoor air pollutants, often resulting in premature death. As a result, 68,000 people die annually because of indoor air pollution. This is 34 times more than the deaths due to malaria. Furthermore, women are usually the ones who have to collect firewood, so this is a gender issue as well. Indonesia has among the highest rates per capita of food loss and food waste in the world. Around 13 million tons of food are wasted every year, enough to feed roughly 28 million people. By wasting food, the carbon dioxide emissions resulted from producing, processing, packaging, shipping, storing, and picking up the food are also wasted. If we can eliminate or reduce food waste, we can reduce carbon dioxide emissions. So what is the gap here? Why don't some people have access to energy? Do you know that the government subsidizes 7 trillion rupiah for LPG annually? However, a chunk of the population still lack access to energy. This is because LPG subsidies are poorly targeted. 70% of the top 10% Indonesian households report to use the subsidized LPGs. Another reason is due to the poor infrastructure in Indonesia. It is difficult to provide clean energy without proper infrastructure. For example, 89% of Maluku households still use kerosene versus only 0.7% of Javanese households. There is also a socio-economic gap. Our CEO, Takeshi Takama, went to Africa for Stockholm Environment Institute project. There, he saw a similar problem faced by Indonesians. They were relying on firewood. In one particular program, Clean Cook provided them a highly efficient stove that burns alcohol fuel without smoke, is easy to use, and affordable to run. However, the Africans felt this stove was still too expensive, and finding alcohol to feed the stove was very difficult. Therefore, the stoves were never used. They went back to cooking with firewood. There, we realized that our solutions should meet the people's needs. So what is our solution? Well, we have collaborated with local, national, and international stakeholders to solve the energy inaccessibility issues. With two major projects funded by the European Commission, we discovered the importance of a multifunctional solution for local problems. We worked with Greenwind and Transrisk and found that the biogas digester is the most suitable solution in Indonesia. You can scan the QR code on the top right corner to learn more about our previous projects. Has anyone ever heard of a biogas digester? Can you give me a thumbs up if you have heard of it before? Okay, thank you, Roger. All right, so a biogas digester is a system where we input manure or food waste to produce gas and bioslurry. The gas can be used for cooking, while the bioslurry acts as an organic fertilizer. Furthermore, the biogas digester allows us to reduce food waste. As you can see, the biogas is a closed-loop system where very few waste is produced. So how does this biogas work? Well, cow manure is usually preferable as a startup feedstock material, due to the fact that it is easily degradable by the microorganism and it does not contain any substance that could affect the microorganism environment. The magic of the biogas digesters happened due to anaerobic digestion. This means in the absence of oxygen. Temperatures also play an important role in this process. It is better to choose the location under sunlight to accelerate the fermentation process because bacteria will be more active when temperatures are higher than 25 degrees Celsius. Depending on the surrounding temperature and the quality of the manure, the system usually begins to produce gas within 5 to 10 days after the initial feeding. Biogas is normally composed of 60% methane and 40% carbon dioxide. The higher the methane, the more flammable is the biogas, and the higher is the energy value of the gas. To re-explain briefly, our biogas digester started with a simple installation process. Then, we feed with manure or food waste. In 5 till 10 days, anaerobic digestion produces gas expanding the tube. This is the bioslurry, used as an organic fertilizer in farms. Additionally, the biogas produces blue gas for farmers to cook their meal. There are several types of digesters. One of the most commonly used is a fixed dome digester. However, this digester is not being deployed fast enough. Only 2,000 are deployed every year, which would take 1,000 years to reach Indonesia's need of 2 million digesters. This is because of the high cost, and it is not compatible with locals' needs. More than 50% of installed fixed dome digesters have been abandoned. Our biogas digester design has improved throughout several years. Here are some pictures from our very first design to our current one. Our biogas is the cheapest and most user-friendly digester in Bali and Flores Islands. We have introduced this to farmers, especially coffee and cacao, because these are the most commonly traded commodity. Across Flores and Bali Islands, we have installed over 25 biogas digesters. This is a diagram of our current biogas digester. It has an inlet for feedstock and 2 outlets for gas and bioslurry. So go back to Slido for my second quiz. Okay, is everyone back on Slido? My second question is, can you estimate the amount of energy produced by our biogas in a day? Maybe it's 20 megajoules or equivalent to 1 liter of gasoline, or you can answer in any other units you can think of. Or you can also answer in the chat box if you would like to participate. My question was, can you estimate the amount of energy produced by our biogas in 1 day? You can answer in any units you can think of. Some examples include 20 megajoules or equivalent to 1 liter of gasoline. Okay, I think someone answered 50 megajoules. That's quite correct. Not really, but you're almost there. Our digester can produce up to 35 megajoules of energy, or equivalent to 1.1 liters of gasoline every day. So hopefully one day we can produce up to 50 megajoules in a single day. For reference, a 6-liter LPG tank can be used up to 5 days. You can scan the QR code here to see our biogas digesters come to life. So I'll give you all about 10 seconds to scan the QR code. The file has also been shared in the chat box, so you can download from the chat box directly. Right, so one of our missions as a gift maker is to contribute to SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. I think everyone here is familiar with SDGs. So the SDGs was designed to be a blueprint to achieve better and more sustainable future for all. It addresses global issues such as poverty, climate change, peace, and justice. So does anyone have any clue which SDGs do our biogas contribute to? You can type your answers in the chat box. Okay, so my question was, which SDGs do our biogas contribute to? Any guesses, anybody? SDGs 7. Okay, very good guesses. Anyone else? 13, okay. 13. Right, 6, 7, okay. That's great. Anyone else before I spell the answers? That's great. Thank you, everyone. So our biogas as a technology itself contributes to SDGs 3, 7, and 12. So a lot of you who guessed 7 are correct. However, our activities go beyond the local scale as they are in line with national and international plans. While it is true that the biogas itself as a technology is part of SDGs 3, 7, and 12, SDGs are very interlinked, and that the biogas as a solution is more than just a technology. Our innovation tackles all of the SDGs. For instance, because women don't have to spend time looking for firewood, we have contributed to SDG number 5, gender equality. Similarly, because the organic fertilizer will not pollute land and water, we have contributed to SDGs 14 and 15. And of course, SDGs 13, climate action, is also another SDG that we have contributed for. So thank you, everyone. I'm gonna give my mic back to Tiago.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia. That was wonderful. We will now be going into some time for some questions. So you guys have any questions for Cynthia, a lot to digest. After the questions, we'll be taking a little break for you guys to, kind of digest again, the amount of information that you guys been receiving. But we will be having some questions. So if you guys want to put that in the Slido, I will get it up in just a second. Or you can put it in the Zoom chat, but preferably the Slido. So just give me one moment. And here we go. So you guys can start submitting your questions for Cynthia. I will make a new poll in just a second. Here we go. I have made the poll for Cynthia, so you guys can start submitting your questions on Slido by scanning the QR code or inputting the digits into the website. I will also paste again the link into the chat. We'll give a little bit more time for the questions to come in, and then because we do have still have a time constraint, we'll be getting one question. Do remember we will have that little time after all the speakers have gone for you guys to submit all your questions, and we'll be taking maybe a couple, maybe 3 or 2 questions because I know many of them must be wonderful that we didn't get to.
Okay, so the first question, can you mute? So the first question is, was it difficult to ask farmers to use the biodigesters? A very good question. Thank you for asking that question. It is hard if you do not train and inform the farmers of the use of the biodigesters. So what we do is we have to come to the farmers and we have to explain what the digesters do and what they have to do in order for the biogas digesters to produce biogas and the bioslurry. So if you don't do that socialization, farmers are less inclined to use the biogas digesters once they have been installed. Another question is, how much does it cost to install the biogas digester? It is actually very cheap. One biogas digester costs you $316 US. That is for the full package. You got the stove, you get the biogas digesters, you got installation manuals, and you got training from Sherco as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Cynthia. And thank you, everyone, for the questions as well. I'm sure there are many more wonderful questions, but you guys can ask that at the end of the session. And we'll be taking a little bit of a break. So we are going to let you guys off for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. If you guys could, you can just relax for a little bit, digest what, all the information, and be back here in about 3 minutes. And we will continue on and welcome our next presenter, who will be Eamon, our Green School student. Okay, guys. Okay, guys, if you could start coming back. If you guys are there, just make sure to sit down, straighten your posture and get ready. We'll be giving 1 more minute for everyone to come back, and then we'll get straight into Eamon's presentation. Okay, guys, I'm going to assume that everyone is already back. So strap up, because we've had some great speakers so far, and we're going to have another great speaker. If everyone could please just welcome Eamon. He is a Green School student. He's a musician and activist. So everyone, please welcome Eamon. Hi, everybody. We're just waiting until I can get this up. All right. Everyone can hear me, yeah? All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Eamon. I'm a grade 12 student at Green School and have been living in Bali for around 10 years. So here I am in Bali, and that is where Green School is located. I've been in Bali for 10 years, and I've been in Green School for the same amount of time. I'm from the US. People may be wondering what Green School is, and I can send you the link to my school's website, as well as I have a small video to show of what my school looks like, because it's quite unique. You might not be able to hear this, but it's just music, so. All right, cool. So I have a question for everybody. You guys can answer it in the chat box. So does anybody know what these snacks have in common? You guys can just put it in the chat box. If nobody knows, the thing that they all have in common is they all contain palm oil in them. Not only these snacks, a lot of other snacks contain palm oil in them as well. So I would like to share my journey in activism that started when I was in 6th grade, or about 11 years old. My friends and I were here in Bali during the 2015 haze in Sumatra and Borneo, caused by the burning of carbon-rich peatlands in order to plant the monoculture crop oil palms. A good friend of mine who had lived in Sumatra during that time came to Bali because her house was not safe to live in due to the smoke. We heard stories similar to hers about unsafe living conditions, endangered animals at risk, and ecosystems lost. So does anyone know what palm oil is? Palm oil is a monoculture oil crop that can only be grown by itself. So as you can see here in the picture, it is being grown in a large field with only palm oil plants. It's mainly produced in Indonesia and Malaysia with around 14 to 21 million. Can you guys hear me? Is it too quiet? Is this better for everybody?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I'll continue like this. So yes, mainly Indonesia and Malaysia, and this is a very efficient oil, and it's great for the country of Indonesia, although it does have its controversies. So the 2015 haze mentioned before, unfortunately released a lot of these peatland, which I'll go into in a bit, and caused all the smoke as you see here in this picture, which ended up in 100,000 premature deaths in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So here's a little bit of background on peatland. Peatland is a type of soil that is a lot of the time in rainforest and tropical climates that stores a lot of carbon in the ground. And it's really great for actually storing in carbon and intaking carbon instead of releasing it. But when it's damaged or set on fire, that carbon is released into the atmosphere and it contributes to climate change. My friends and I wanted to do something about it, and so we started Kids Cut Conflict Palm Oil. It was an initiative run by students to encourage the boycott of unsustainable palm oil products, specifically processed snacks like Oreos, and instead promote locally made snacks that were cheaper and tasted better. We made Instagram videos walking around the supermarket, pulling candy bars off the shelves, and reading the ingredients to see if they had palm oil. People online were interested, and we gave talks at international schools around Bali, also visiting Singapore, Jakarta, and Kalimantan to spread awareness about the adorable orangutan who lost his home. We were even recognized by Dr. Jane Goodall for all our efforts as youth. So here are a little bit of pictures of what we were involved with. In 2016, we traveled to the Lauser ecosystem in Aceh, Sumatra, a large area of forest home to thousands of different species of flora and fauna, including the endangered Sumatran tiger, elephant, rhino, orangutan, and hornbill. We camped in the forest with Forest Conservation NGO Wildlife Asia and learned about their efforts to maintain the rainforest and regenerate the land that was previously used for illegal palm oil plantations. After returning from the trip, I was excited to tell everyone at school what I had learned and encourage them to stop their palm oil use. I was always the guy to tell people, hey, don't buy that, and was always met with dirty looks. Although our movement was supported by adults and people online, my peer group wasn't very receptive to the way I was conveying my message. Shortly after we returned from Sumatra, Kids Cut Conflict Palm Oil gradually dissipated. The situation was far more complex than I had imagined. After reflecting on this, I ended up with conflicting opinions. I saw these animals thriving in the wild, and I wanted to do everything in my power to keep them there and alive. But at the same time, I saw palm oil plantations giving jobs not only to individuals in rural areas, but serving as a great source of income for the country of Indonesia. I learned that palm oil, when cultivated responsibly, is an incredibly efficient oil. It yields over 10 times more oil per hectare than its alternatives, like soybean oil. Sustainability isn't always about the environment. It's also very much about the well-being of society, the economy, and often complex issues regarding legality. As naive 11-year-olds, it was hard to understand this. I learned that in this case, confrontational activism wasn't working. What we needed was persuasion. We needed to sell the idea that sustainable palm oil was more desirable, rather than shame people or corporations for not using it. So here you can see the pros and cons. And although there are more pros on this list, the cons are also quite pressing. So it's very understandable why something like this would be quite controversial. So sustainable palm oil is very interesting because it can relate to so many of the SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. So the main ones that I've highlighted are 1, 2, 7, 8, 13, 14, and 15. Although they can hit way more if the government embraces sustainable palm oil and integrates it into the economy of Indonesia. In 2018, as I was working on my quest, a presentation that 8th grade students work on as a transition into high school, I decided to revive the topic one last time and speak about my changed opinions on the issue. I'm a musician, so I also explored how to channel my activism into my art, which led me to write and perform a song. So what happened after that? I learned that you don't have to be the hero. There are already heroes. I learned that I could be an ally. In my high school experience so far, I've participated in trash walks, played music for an ocean conservation event, worked with other students to raise over $10,000 in 2 weeks for a community of orphan teens in southern India and got the opportunity to visit them, and became one of the first men to participate in the Green School Theater performance that raises awareness about gender-based violence. In the coming months, I will help to organize a sustainability conference within the Green School community, featuring fellow artistic activists, and have started assisting with Shurko's collaboration with Green School, which is how I'm here today. These are the things that I have learned that will hopefully help me to become a better activist. 1. Remove yourself from the center. Sometimes the cause doesn't need a new NGO or a new face to advertise. The problem is much bigger than me and you. 2. Inside out. First, make changes to your own personal life, deciding which products to buy, going vegetarian, recycling, or composting. 3. Listen and observe the people on the ground. Discover who is already making change. What are they doing? How can you help? Donations? 4. Create connections. Reach out to people and get involved. 5. Amplify the message. Share important initiatives messages through social media or telling your peers. And 6. Research about the issue. What is being done in the NGOs or government? Stay up to date on current events to know what is changing or what still needs to be changed. So what are my thoughts on the issue now? It has been over 5 years since I was in the jungle in Sumatra. And in that time, I've had multiple cognitive shifts that have changed the way I think about the issue. I think palm oil has immense potential. It shows convincing health benefits, is neutral in taste, incredibly cheap, and has potential to be a source of alternative energy, as we have seen in the biofuel vehicles that we have at Green School. Palm oil is, again, an incredibly efficient oil. That's demand will be stronger if it is grown sustainably. But what is sustainably grown palm oil? What does it look like? According to the Roundtable of Sustainable Palm Oil, or RSPO, there are 8 key rules. Commitment to transparency, compliance with applicable laws and regulations, commitment to long-term economic and financial viability, use of appropriate best practices by growers and millers, environmental responsibility of conservation and natural resources and biodiversity, responsible consideration of employees and of individuals and communities affected by growers and mills, responsible development of new plantings, and commitment to continuous improvement in key areas of activity. Another guideline is the NDPE rule: no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation. I prefer to use the NDPE rule because if you're like me, you have no idea what the first one means. Although the RSPO is the official and most widely recognized way to establish sustainably grown palm oil, there are gray areas in its regulations. And some studies have shown that the RSPO certification doesn't always mean it's truly sustainable. A 2021 study from the journal The Science of the Total Environment shows that a large fraction of certified plantations operate on deforested land that was cleared in the past, before their certification, breaking the guidelines of the RSPO. This makes it incredibly difficult to trust who is doing it right and who isn't, especially because the details of who owns which plantations is not available to the public. Simply removing palm oil from the economy of Indonesia would be unreasonable and affect many people's livelihoods. Over 6 million people are employed by this industry, and removing it would be detrimental. Replacing palm oil with an alternative oil would be expensive if the country was to import it, and if they were to grow it in Indonesia, it would actually take up more land and create a bigger problem due to the other oil plants having a lower oil per hectare yield. So here's an image of the amount of oil for 1 hectare that oil palms produce. And so for its alternatives like soybean and sunflower, you actually have more oil and it's more productive if you use oil palms. There are things being done. Initiatives like Yayasan Haka, Wildlife Asia, and Sawit Watch are all contributing to forest regeneration and conservation in Indonesia. And you can visit their websites that I will link at the end of my talk for more information. In 2018, President Joko Widodo declared a temporary ban on the expansion of palm oil plantations in order to reduce deforestation as well as hopefully increase productivity on existing plantations. The ban was set to end up September 19, 2021, and unfortunately, there is no information on an extension. So far, not much has been revealed of how effective the ban has been, although in this time, the government has located and shut down over 3 million hectares of illegally grown palm oil and plantations. Some are critical of the ban as palm oil prices have gotten more expensive in the last year, worried that the price may continue to go up as the ban stays in place. Others say that this ban is crucial in order to create a net carbon sink in the country by 2030, which is something that absorbs more carbon into the ground than it releases into the atmosphere, like I mentioned with peatlands before. And that by maximizing the land already being used and replanting forest occupied by illegal plantations, they may be able to achieve their goal. This is good news for the country's emissions, considering Indonesia's main carbon emissions are from deforestation. There's a general shift in the government towards sustainable palm oil production, although a big thing that prevents corporations and governments from committing to sustainability around the world is money. Preserving the forest doesn't provide an income for the country's people. I think the idea of selling small plots of the forest to individuals in order to preserve it may be a solution. Similar to buying and naming a star, or buying a square meter of land in Scotland, or becoming a lord or lady. This concept would allow people to remotely buy a small plot of forest and perhaps get to name it after themselves or appreciate it as art, similar to art in the form of NFTs. This generates an income while preserving the forests. I am not an expert. I was a young kid in middle school who was passionate about saving the rainforests and the beautiful animals, and through that process, learned more about the real complexity of the issue. Without that passion and naivety, I wouldn't have ended up learning more about this issue or talking with you all right now. As of now, I'm looking at the situation that I once viewed as black and white from a bird's eye view and seeing shades of gray. I don't have the solutions, and I don't have to, but I still think the first step to being an activist is educating yourself. I encourage you all to Google an issue you want to learn more about in the world. If you can make changes within your mindset in your daily life, that is just as valuable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eamon. That was wonderful. I'm sure everyone learned a lot from that too. Eamon has a lot to share, as a very young voice in the community, as an activist. So I'm sure you guys must have lots of questions. So I will be putting up the Slido QR code again, and you guys can ask your questions there. Just give me one moment. Here we go. You guys can send a QR code, go to the link. You guys are probably familiar with this already. So please put your questions on there, and we'll be picking one, and then we'll be moving on to a little session where you can ask any of the speakers in case, you had some question that didn't get answered, or you had some, brilliant new question that came to you. Just waiting for some questions to come in. So one of the questions here is, did the classes in Green School motivate you to learn about the environment, or was it from your own experience outside of the school? So Eamon, if you could answer that.
Thanks for the question. That's a great one. Whoops, sorry. Okay, thank you for that question. So I would say that definitely my classes at Green School have inspired me to think about the environment in a different way than I would have normally. But the impact of the haze in 2015 and the way it affected people that were close to me was something that me and my friends decided that that was something that we wanted to focus on because it was a pressing issue that there really wasn't a student body talking about yet. So yes, definitely Green School inspired me, but the topic specifically was something that me and my friends came up with. Thank you.
We'll do another quick one. So Eamon, what do I look for when buying products to make sure it has sustainable palm oil? I found this was a really good one.
That is a really good one. And my main answer for you is in a country like Indonesia, it's almost impossible to avoid palm oil completely, especially if you are trying to be sustainable, because there could be an instance where if you are buying only sunflower oil, only canola oil, you could be creating more carbon emissions because of the import from other countries. But because if you use a cooking oil that is palm oil, it might actually be better for the environment based on import emissions. I would say generally limit. You can look on the back of the labels to look for palm oil, and I would just try to avoid processed snacks with a lot of single-use plastic anyway. Most of those snacks have palm oil, and I feel like in places where you can't avoid, like eating at a local restaurant or having cooking oil or eating at a restaurant where you don't really know what kind of oil they're using, I think it's a little bit more understandable why someone would use palm oil in that sense. But um, for the sustainable palm oil, I haven't really seen anything that is technically RSPO certified in Indonesia because I'm not sure if there is a regulation for that yet. I know in the States, in the United States, there are a lot of brands that have committed to sustainable palm oil, and you will see the little logo that says RSPO on their logo on their brand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eamon. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your presentation. I will be sharing my screen once more, and we will have some time for questions for any of the speakers. So if you have another question for Eamon, if you have a question for Roger or Cynthia, this is a time to submit it to the Slido, because I'm sure we missed probably some very great questions from you guys. So we're just going to give maybe a minute or two for you guys to submit your questions to the Slido for any of the speakers. And yeah. I do ask, I'm seeing some questions come in. Please specify which speaker you are asking the question to, so we know who to ask. So we have a question here for Eamon, and it's when and how old were you when you first realized the actual complexity of palm oil and more of its benefits? So Eamon, if you want to answer that.
Yes. This has been a ongoing thing, I would say. I think I'm learning more and more still. I'm still just trying to learn everything that I can. And I would say I think around 15, 14 or 15. I'm 18 now, almost 18 now, for reference. But I think when I was younger, I hadn't really had the revelation of the controversy of it and only viewed it as like a one-sided thing that was generally negative.
Thank you, Eamon. I hope that answered whoever's question that was. Wait for some more questions to come in here. Seeing some questions come in. We'll try to get one for each of the participants. A lot of them are about Eamon. I feel we've had a lot of questions about Eamon. So if you guys have any questions for the other participants, feel free to ask. So we have another question for Eamon. Eamon, the question is here, how would you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? And I think that's a pretty good question, Eamon, if you want that.
Sure. Okay, so in 5 to 10 years, I would probably see myself hopefully working in sustainability. I'm an artist, so I am looking at going to school for filmmaking and documentary filmmaking that would be able to tie in my love for the environment with my love for film and art. So hopefully that works out and I get to pursue my passion in 5 to 10 years. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Eamon. We have another question here for Cynthia. And Cynthia, is it possible to introduce the biogas systems you talked about into urban areas? If you want to answer that.
Hi, Diego. So thank you for the question. Yes, it is possible to introduce the biogas systems to urban areas because our biogas are actually very small. So you can you can download the software, which was pasted in the chat box a few minutes ago. And then you can see the biogas come to life. You can see the actual size of the biogas. You can maybe compare that to your backyard and see if it fits in your backyard.
Thank you, Cynthia. We'll get a couple more So here's another one for Cynthia. Cynthia,
able to convince farmers to implement.
how are you able to convince farmers to implement the biodigester systems? Someone might have missed that. I think you talked about it earlier. So if you want to just give a
Yes, okay. So I did mention that farmers need a lot of convincing in order to implement the biogas digesters. But lately, farmers are understanding the importance of not using synthetic fertilizers and the benefits that organic fertilizer from the bioslurry can provide them. Also, because of the coronavirus, the Balinese farmers are not getting subsidies to buy synthetic fertilizers. So when we informed them that the bioslurry is like a free organic fertilizers they can use on their farms, they were very excited and they wanted to use the biogas digesters. And I also see the AR files in for the biogas digesters. I will share them again in the chat box.
Thank you, Cynthia, for answering that question. I hope your question was answered, whoever submitted it. We will do one last question as we are running a bit low on time. And it's another one for Cynthia. And Cynthia, how much are you looking to price point biogas to consumers?
So a single biogas digester would cost us around 316 US dollars, or around 4.5 million rupiah. And that is for a complete package of the biogas digesters, including the stove, you got the digester itself, and training from Suriko peoples. Thank you.
Thank you. Because we just received one for Roger, we will be asking this last one. So Roger, you mentioned you were traveling around Japan. Where would you recommend visiting?
I would suggest Kyoto. Well, in my slides, I shared about Edo City, which is what we call Kyoto today. And Kyoto government actually understands that they have that kind of history. So other than Tokyo, where there's a lot of businesses, Kyoto is also focusing a lot on sustainability. So if you go there, you'll be able to find sustainable restaurants, sustainable hotels, sustainable experiences. If you go traveling, you want to make sure the activities you participate are sustainable too. And yes, I think Kyoto, I would highly recommend Kyoto, whether it be studying or just traveling.
Thank you, Roger, for answering that question. The time for questions has unfortunately elapsed because we do have some other things that we need to get to. One of them is the Wix kind of community that we have. I believe the link will be posted now down into the chat. But we have a participant in here that is actually can talk more about that. So if I could welcome Tirta, if you could please come up. I will stop sharing and mute myself.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, cool. Hello everyone. My name is Tirta. I'm a grade 11 student in Green School Bali. I am just here to
Tirta, if you're with us, if you want to share more.
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm here to basically share another program that Green School Bali and Sherco are actually holding in October, the end of October. It is called eConnect. So basically it is a 3-day online 3-day online forum where we will hold talks and workshops that are centered around sustainability as well. So a few of, I guess I don't want to spoil too much, but a few of the talks are about the water crisis and also about the pollution and trash management in Bali. And we also have a few interactive workshops such as making water filter, making eco bricks. If anyone knows what that is, if you don't, then come join us and find out. The program will be held on the 25th to the 27th of October. So I hope that you guys, everyone here would like to register, and on the screen is the QR code to the forum to register. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you. I couldn't hear that you were speaking. The computer was muted. I apologize for that. But thank you. I believe we can now talk about the giveaway challenge that we will be doing. So make sure you guys pay attention. The instructions are written down, but I'll read them out for you. So write something that you learned from today's webinar. You know, it can be short, it can be long, and make sure you post that to your Instagram and tag the accounts zenbird.media, at Green School Bali, and at Sherco. And the winner will be announced on the 1st of November, so relatively soon-ish. And we'll be picking 3 winners who will get a Sherco discount voucher, Green School notes, and a Green School cap. So if you guys could, you know, this is going to be helpful for us, and it could be helpful for you. So if you guys want to really engage, you know, make sure to write down, you know, your reflection on what you learned, post it on your Instagram, do all the steps down below, and you guys will be into the giveaway challenge and have a chance to win, you know, some awesome rewards. So this is the participants group. By the way, here is the QR code. If you guys want to scan that right now. And I think that will be it for this webinar. Big thank you to all the speakers and, you know, to Sherco, Green School, and Zenbird for supporting us and, you know, supporting this webinar. Thank you to Raymond, thank you to Roger, thank you to Cynthia, thank you to absolutely everyone who showed up. You guys are amazing. You guys had some awesome questions, you know, really engaging. We're really
You froze.
from wherever you're logging in from. And but before we go, actually, if we could just take a picture with all the participants, if you guys want to turn on your cameras, I will go to gallery view and just take a quick screenshot of everyone who joined today. Wow, that is a lot of people. I haven't gone to gallery yet. Give me a moment. If you guys want to turn on your cameras and okay, guys, countdown from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful night. And see you. I hope you guys learned something wonderful today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.